Committee of the whole, bond committee meeting for this evening. Would everyone please rise for the pledge of allegiance? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, I'll take a roll call. Ms. Reed?
Here?
Ms. Mitchell?
Here.
Mr. Stahl? Here. Dr. Krebs?
Here.
Mr. Connolly? Here. Mr. Myers here. And I'll do a call to the public. Is there anyone here that would like to address the board at the call to the public? Okay, seeing none, that closes call to the public and moves us into item 1 on our agenda, which is board decisions. And my understanding is there is nothing specific that needs to be decided collectively as a board this evening. Is that correct, Dr. Alwa?
Correct.
All right. Item number 2 is items for which the administration is looking for board direction. And the first item under that category is Miller Mill and Pave East Lot for $65,100. So Bernie, Scott, who wants to?
Mike?
Yeah. This is talking about the small lot to the east of the school. It's not used by any cars or anything at this point. It's pretty broken up. We had decided, when we decided to do Miller, that we weren't gonna do that east lot. We weren't gonna redo it. At one point, we were gonna abandon it, but in the bond committee discussions, I think we determined that there is some fire access that goes to that neighborhood through there. There's an easement that runs up through there. But, so we weren't planning to mill and cap that parking lot at all, but the director for Top Spot really would like it done, because she says they use it for bikes, for bikes. She's thinking she can use some of her grant dollars that she has. I have to work out whether that's okay or not, because we didn't put it out to bid as a prevailing wage type project. If you're gonna use federal dollars for it, we have to meet Davis-Bacon requirements. There's a whole string of things I'm gonna have to look at. I don't know, are we looking to see if the board is interested in entertaining it, or I'm not really sure.
It's whatever you guys want to do. I mean, it's just, I know it's been brought up a couple times and we've gotten pricing where we priced it up at bid time and we decided not to do it. And we just need to know and to give ASI direction. And while we're out here, it's the best time to do it. If not, we can always do it next summer with the next paving package.
So if it can be done through grant funding, is the board interested in Mike pursuing or exploring that?
So, do we have any? Oh, sorry.
Next time, but the idea is that we didn't hear anything about anybody using it. Everything I ever heard was it needs to be just kind of forgotten about. And then we have a situation where our students need a lot to roll around down to the playgrounds, not sufficing, then obviously I think it's board look at that. We never heard that before. So that's the first time we ever heard that. And I would suggest also not asphalt, but look at the concrete, just like we were talking about earlier. The cost of concrete versus asphalt, and if they're gonna be rolling around on their stuff, we could set them up as pretty nice and permanent. And if we're gonna pay for it right now with bond dollars, I'm not supporting it without scope personally. But if there's a grant money available, we could explore the opportunities for students and what it would help them get. I mean, I don't see, there's really no purpose in the bond project we have going now to redo that driveway. Nobody ever brought us a proposal to even think about that I know of.
And I had no idea that it gets used for anything.
Correct.
I've never seen a car or anything
Right.
out there.
I think we totally skip it for now. If there's, that's my opinion, if there's grant money available to put something in that we really need for kids, then obviously we should look at that. And if there's a need for something for kids, I think we should look at that too, even if we paid for it ourselves. But at this point, nobody's brought anything forward that I've ever heard of for that $65,000.
Do we have any legal obligations to a fire road?
Uh,
I think it can be dirt. You think it can go?
It can be dirt, but it doesn't.
I was gonna say,
It's
maybe we just melt
it's
it.
just so they can drive the truck.
Turn it into,
Just mill it up. And then you've still got access, it's something to drive in if you need it, and kids can play in it too.
they can't bring their stuff on it though. Comparatively, but it's relative. If we had to put a patch in back there for them to ride around, then, I mean, if somebody had a proposal, obviously it's a good time to look at it. Have you been over and looked at it yourself?
I've been over to the lot, but, yeah, I wasn't aware they use it at all. But apparently she's hounding me about it, I'm not gonna lie.
Well, that's good. She's beating the drum and she wants to do something. Now she has to come up with a proposal to present to the board, and if it looks good, I think these guys will do it. It's gonna help kids.
Are you okay tabling it unless we have more information?
Yeah, I think the big kicker was, obviously ASI is gonna be finishing up their work there on that very lower piece later this month, so just whether we wanted to pursue it or not at this time. So.
I just want to make sure I get all the information. So have we done, I'm sure we haven't done any testing over there or anything, and it fell apart for a reason. Are we prepared to, put a bunch of limestone in it, contact it if we have to, because that's a lot of money too. I mean,
Yeah, we
might
only,
open it up and find you got a hole there.
only got a price to mill and cap it, that's, I think, all Bernie got. I think it was-
If they can get a grant, I think I'm with John. If they can do something like that, I'm good with it, but it's not really being used for anything.
Well, I agree with that. I mean, if we can use grant dollars that we already have been awarded for this purpose, then I think that's worth pursuing. If we can't, then I think we need a lot more information about what our options and what the potential uses are before I'm willing to commit to $65,000 or more. Yeah.
I'll look at it from a grant avenue perspective and pursue it if it's available. And if not, we'll, if she has a proposal she wants to bring forward, we'll take a look at it then.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, thanks. The next item B is high school bulletin number 45 with 3 different subcategories: ad stripes, including some material from Scranton, Coldwell bulletin number 45, and Coldwell entire school. So who would like to tackle this one?
So actually, the stripes, that was actually approved prior, you guys had approved that prior to. So now and I don't know if it's really a design issue as far as, I know there's some concerns about the white on the white joints and the way they're collecting dirt, I suppose, is what the best thing to say. So there's some options there, and I think.
I think that kind of came from Tracy Taylor.
Yeah, that came from, exactly, from T2, so that was their issue.
She wasn't happy with some way some of the joints were turning out and ended up over years of time, so she thought I should be cold over.
I apologize. Where is this
This is
issue?
in high school, the flooring in high school.
The flooring at the high school?
Yep. it's all
Okay.
flooring in
Just
high
to
school.
just to back up a little bit, obviously we're putting in new rubber flooring around the high school, taking up all the subway tile, and it's now been spread over 3 summers. But some of the north-south corridors that are shorter were nothing but white, and that was, it was all on the design. It looked good, but in after installation, all white, really, it needed to be broken up. So that was the stripes. They cut in and welded in some stripes to kind of break up the hallway and the continuous white. Now, what they're finding is where because you have different colors, but where white meets white, where those seams are, the seams don't seem to be adhering as well, or
Well, they're
something.
here, because right now, they're just butt joints, so they just lay it out right next to each other, there's nothing that fills that joint or anything. And wherever you have the white on white, if you walk around, it appears that it's collecting dirt. Is really probably the best, what you agree, Scott? Yeah. It's kind of collecting dirt, so one of the ways to do it is you actually go in there, and there's 2 different things you can do. You can use a heat gun to do some welding, or they have another cold weld, which is a chemical process that they fill that joint in. It's a little bit different color, it's a little, now, instead of a tight joint there, you'll have a little bit of that filler material in between the 2. If that's something you guys are interested in, I would suggest that we get some of those joints done and see how they do before you commit to doing anything.
That seems like a very logical, yeah, I like that.
Because the 99,000 is to do every single joint. And it's where you have a white and a color, an orange or a black or a gray, it's really not an issue. It's really just what you the field that you have some white on white pieces, and that's where it seems to be happening.
Because then it looks darker.
And that would
whatever
be-
in between them.
What's that?
Then it looks darker or whatever is collected.
Yeah, it looks like a line, so, a dirt line.
How do they clean it? Do they use that, do they use the drive-on scrubber on that? Or do you did?
What? Yeah, so
Well, okay, does that take it out? It's just that you can't keep up with it? I mean, I understand, yeah.
Or 80% of it takes up.
And
So
are-
that weld, what will that look like? Is it pretty smooth?
Well, that's why I'm recommending that you guys, because it would look like a joint, and I would recommend that you probably want to do it, because, again, I talked to the installers, and their comments are that if you even put that joint in there, then cold weld in there, you're still gonna see some dirt at some
There's a
point.
difference, yeah.
But yeah, so I would suggest that if you're interested in doing this, let's get a couple spots done, maybe in the back corner by the auto lab or something like that, and see how that wears. They'll be back next summer to finish up the school. And this $100,000 number would go down considerably, because we're not doing all the joints, just the white on white joints. That's probably 20% of the joints, I would say, total joints out there.
So what's the difference between the 5,000?
We had, originally I was asked to get a pricing for just where we added those stripes.
Okay.
And it doesn't really make that, they asked me to get a pricing for that, and I got that, but I also got a pricing to do every single joint. But now after we look at it some more, it's really just wherever you got a white on a white joint that probably needs to be done, or something needs to be done, except for the joints will look a little bit different. That's why where you have some of this welded and some of it not, they look different. So I would suggest look back by the auto lab there to get some of those joints done with the cold weld, and then see what it looks like compared to, and then make a decision.
And that's something that can be done before school starts?
We can do the sample before school starts, but we probably wouldn't go back, because we still have a third of the school to go back and do next summer. We were trying to do it in 2 summers, but we ran into the issue where a quarter of the school has asbestos under it, so it took a lot longer than we planned this summer to do that work, because we had to abate all that floor tile. So
Does this
that would probably say my recommendation.
change the life of the product? Like the welding, either hot welding or cold welding?
It shouldn't change the life of it all, because it's just that where it's at there. Both, all three of it, either the butt joints, the cold weld and the hot weld, they're all common procedures to join this material together. It's aesthetics and what one designer likes over what another designer likes.
Is this a non-wax or
Correct.
can it be waxed? Because I know some of the non-wax can. I don't know.
So we're going to amend it.
I would.
Different products, you can put it on to shine it up, like they got a product called Rejuvenate that we've used on the gym floor at Spencer.
Does that seal?
It seals it and, yeah.
Just a thought.
So how much did we spend on the floor in high school? Or are we going to spend?
The high school the original bid was I think it was like 1.1 million.
So, in a $1.1 million bid, this product had never been used in other schools, that we know the same thing could happen in our school, that happened somewhere else.
It's been used I've used this rubber product extensively in hospitals.
So why am I hearing now that let's say we need $40,000 more to go through to fix what we need to fix, or whatever it would be?
The way it was designed, and that's the way we installed it, and I can't speak to why it was designed that way. I can just say this is where we're at right now. So,
We use the same product in the athletic wing when we completed the prior bond.
Yep.
That rubber flooring that's in there, it's the same product. It's just the design and the layout's a little different.
yeah, the biggest issue we had when we were looking at this flooring there is that wing that you were talking about, the old tile pattern, how it has telegraphed through that floor. So that was our big focus when we bought this out, was that we would prep the floors to make sure that we wouldn't get that. Because if you go back in that wing right now, you can see all the old, the flooring looks, if you look close enough, it looks like it's a tile floor, because it's just all the, wherever joint was, it's bled through a little bit. So that was our main focus when we did this one here.
What's the warranty on these floors?
double check there. I don't know off the top of my head, I'd have to check.
We spent $1.1 million. Is it 1 year? Is it
Oh, no.
2 years?
It's longer than that. I don't know if it's a 10 or 15-year warranty there.
It's in the double digits.
And the warranty on that is what? Does the warranty cover these tiles if Scott can't get them tuned up and cleaned up? They are, some of them are a little, they're getting somewhere in
It's not a tile, it's a sheet good, so,
Yeah. Well, okay, gee.
yeah.
So, yes, I don't think anybody here wants to see the work not done correctly. That's another, I don't speak for anybody, but the issue is that I expected $1.1 million in flooring that was done correctly without having to sit here and look at another $40,000 bill. So. For me.
Well, I get it, I mean, the colors, you know, they didn't choose the colors, they just said, yeah, I'm gonna put the floor down, so if it's white on white, I get that, it's gonna show that.
I mean, what I can say is you guys had the samples out in front of but you did not have any white on white joints out there. They were all colors next to the white, colors, so.
I know, but you guys are the experts on this. I strictly would be the person that you say this is what's gonna work with that, because I never put this stuff in before, and I'm not necessarily unhappy with it, so, but the idea is it's another $40,000 minimum, it sounds like, if you did repairs, right? Is that about right? Is that what you're thinking, by percentage?
20, something like that, 20 to 30,000 maybe, yeah.
John, to answer your question, it's a 20-year warranty.
20 years. So what happens if these joints don't work out? What happens to the warranty?
Well, again, I think the joints are more of aesthetic more than anything else. I think that's just, it's a hairline.
Right.
Where the
I'm
brush
familiar with it, yeah.
And it's more aesthetic at this point in time. So I don't believe it's a failure in the material.
Okay, didn't shrink.
So the subsequent warranty would, it would not be a warranty item in my mind.
Okay, but if we do this cold weld to it, what happens to the warranty of those panels, those sheets?
They would remain the same that 20 years. I don't think that would change.
That's what we should, no, that's just.
And there's installation options, I'm sure, and Tracy's not here to say one or the other, but I'm pretty convinced there's a, cold basically install and a well, and that was the two, and I'm sure that the cold was probably more cost effective. I say cold, it's just, but, and that's probably why it was done. And for the most part, that's good when it butts up against different colors. But I think in this instance, what we discovered is the white on white just shows it immediately. So in hindsight, at the white on white areas, it should have been a well situation instead of the gold.
Well, it's just a butt joint. You can do,
Butt joint.
there's a butt joint and pull in the.
But it's a butt joint.
So I would refer to you to tell us if that's what we need to do and it already be done before we're talking about it tonight. But I'll leave it that our Mike has a copy of the warranties, right, and all our floors that we paid for. He'll have a copy in the file and then these guys will have to decide if they want to pay any extra to fix it.
So again, you could have bid this out, I mean, we bid it out the way it was designed. That's where we've installed it. There is an aesthetic issue with it, that's what we're looking at. You could have just as easily bid it out with a cold well.
Gotcha.
It would have been, your bid would have been probably 1.2 million instead of 1.1, so.
Okay, that's fine, thank you.
I think Tracy has been working with the NORA rep to determine what might be the best course of action at this point. And I think she's recommending cold weathering, just the white on whites.
To clean it up.
Mhm.
So just so I understand the process, so the cold well, would you go back in and remove the what has been installed per the specs? Or this would just be the initial?
Yeah, wherever there's a joint in there, they basically have the cold well process, you gotta take off both sides, you groove it out, you put the product on there. It's a chemical adhesion process. And then you basically sand it off and then you pull the tape up and then you get a little bit of joint.
Okay.
Whereas I think most people have seen like the hot weld where they got the gun and they sit there and they got the little bit of material and they, run the gun down there and it seals everything, melts everything and it all becomes one piece there. This is just a different way to do it without melting it basically, so over acceptable.
You would have me taking out the product instead.
Yeah.
Well, that was kind of what I, yeah.
Yes,
Because
correct.
if that was the case, I'd say, well, why don't we let's see what it looks like, but we should probably see what it looks like anyway. I agree that, because if it's something that, is not going to serve its purpose and aesthetically doesn't do anything, then there's no reason.
I believe we have some, I'll find out which ones, but I believe in the art rooms we did at the last time, I think some of those are cold welded.
Do we, timing wise, do we have to make a choice now?
No.
Because we're talking about work that will be done next summer.
Well, some of the work's already done. You have about 2/3 of, by the end of the summer, you'll have about 2/3 of the flooring down. They can go back and do this, so if it's something you want to do, it would probably be done either over the holiday break with what they've done already, or they would do it all next summer when they're finishing up the school.
So we have time to take a look at how it's wearing for the couple of joints that have been done already.
Yep.
Okay.
And again, it's an aesthetic issue, so, some people may think it might need to be replaced right now. Done right now, but
Any other questions? No? So we'll just, Dr. O'Leary or Mr. Angleton will just let us know when it's available to take a look, and we'll figure out the
just a
logistics.
sample. I think that's the best thing to do.
Okay, that moves us then to item C, which is the 2023 contingency expenditures. Dr. Ella, who do you, or Mr.
Can start. Obviously, we've talked a lot about the need for the board to set some priorities. Obviously, this is all with the caveat that the contingency dollars fluctuates. You don't know what the end amount's going to be that's going to be there. Obviously, there's a lot of overruns with all the inflation and things that are going on everywhere. And so what we were hoping for, and I think, Bernie, you need this by fall.
So the idea is that we figured out the 1st of November, so we have the bids in before Christmas, and then everybody's lined up to do the work over the summertime. I think that's the best.
Right.
I think that's the best bidding strategy.
So maybe Mr. Angleton could talk a little bit about where we sit with contingency right now, maybe where he projects that to be. And then we had that list that maybe we could go through. We talked about it a little bit, a couple months ago. But we have one that the administration and operations team got together to talk about some of the high needs projects that they had out there. And then secondly, we had a full list that we shared with you a couple months ago of the types of projects that do need to be done at some time within this district. So tonight, I don't think this is a night where you're going to make decisions necessarily, maybe a small decision or two, but the thought might be that this is where the board can have some discussion, talk about some projects that might be important to you, and have some dialogue, ask questions of the team, working towards what the team needs over here, that if they're going to add any projects for next summer, they're going to need those in the fall so that they can get those out for bid for next summer. So that was the thinking. So maybe Mr. Angleton could talk about where we sit with contingency, and then maybe Mr. Jacobs and Mr. Angleton could talk maybe about some of the priority lists that they had set up, and then we could just free flow conversation, if that works.
Yeah, and as we've talked about before, it's really hard to pin down where the contingency lies right now. I mean, it's still moving. We have a lot of paving to do next year. There's, putting that road in at Scranton. You never know what you're going to find under the ground, what kind of soil conditions there are, all of those things. So, I was just planning around a $2 million number at this point, trying to be conservative. It can go up and down, but just as a planning number at this point. So what we did is kind of sat down and tried to go through our big list, and then tried to put together a prioritized list of the top 15 things that we saw. But really, and kind of how we looked at it when we put this together is looking at the top 6 things. They're all they're not huge dollar amount things, but they're things that we felt were the big things that needed to be done. Obviously, the first thing up there is some field drainage at Scranton. We've got 4 fields out there that are almost unplayable anytime it rains. And, we're running, we have a desperate need for green space these days in fields. And we feel like it's silly to have those fields. They're all really bad clay up there, so they just don't drain. And we sitting down and looking at it, saying, as far as the operations of the district go, that was probably the top thing we'd like to knock out if we could get it done. Second thing here is cafeteria flooring. We put in a whole new ceiling, did work in that cafeteria, but as we're doing that, we're looking at the flooring and it's all old VCT tile and it's starting to cup in places and the corners are coming up and we're starting to get breakage. So we would like to start looking at cafeteria flooring. I think we've had some discussions with Tracy, Bernie, and Tracy and I have all talked. We think that rubber product that we're putting on in the high school would be the best option for in there. There was some discussion at one point of putting epoxy in there. I really am not recommending that whatsoever for a couple of reasons. One, if you add the flake to it for the slip resistant, it's really hard to clean up spills. Not really. And the other reason so then if you don't put the flake in it, spills become very slippery. So I'm not looking at the epoxy myself. That's obviously up for discussion, but I also have concerns with the noise level in a cafeteria if you have a hard epoxy floor. We're thinking that rubber might be the way to go there. So we're not sure. We know we can't do that between now and school starting, obviously. We're not even certain we could get it done over Christmas, but we at least want to explore the idea of getting that done. Third thing on this list is we are going to need a man lift that can reach the top of the stadium or the indoor practice facility that we put in. We do need to get a man lift that can get us up 60 feet for changing lights and doing things in there.
This will also be helpful for the parking lights, right?
Right.
Because you have to call somebody and borrow a machine all the time or pay for one.
Yes.
So yeah, we've had a need for it even before that.
Except for renting one, it takes a long time to run up to 100,000 too. So let's think about this before we go spend 100,000. How often do you need a 60-foot man lift?
That's a fair question.
So
Fair
if you need it for 2 weeks out of the year, you go and rent it, and it costs $1,200 a week to rent.
Right.
Okay, so that's $2,500. So it's a $100,000 expense plus the maintenance of taking care of it. So
The other number 4 on there is irrigation sprinkler system out at Malpe-Horning on those fields. There was a rudimentary sprinkler system put in by some dads, and I think Greg
This
Gray.
is so rudimentary. Take exception to the way you speak like that.
But it's been destroyed at this point.
Yeah.
I think that's a no-brainer.
Yeah. So along with that.
The one hesitation is that we need to have a larger conversation about Malpe and just at the bottom of access road, parking. Some of those conversations also may impact that.
Right, but some of the other things that we had discussions with the contractor out there last week. We've asked that it be designed to be put back as playable fields. I don't think the restoration that was called for in the original design actually had that graded as a playable athletic field. So we're getting that straightened out now, but we'd like to look at getting a sprinkler system put back in there so that we maintain a nice grass playable field.
So I know this is a wish list, but I mean, are we gonna go all the way through the list and then entertain any questions or what? Because
Yeah, I'm just
a
giving
lot of
you,
this needs to be tied together, in my opinion.
I was just giving you our ideas on what the top 6 really is where I was going. These were the things that we felt were tied with the work we're currently doing and or scope that maybe got missed. Like digital sign at Spencer is now going to be the only school that doesn't have one. And if we're going to be doing the parking lot next summer, I'd like to pursue getting that done and putting the conduit in so that it's complete, so that we've at least crossed that off the list. Because now is the time to do it if we're going to do it.
That's a long run for the building.
Yeah, but if you're gonna have the
That's why
lot,
we never did it.
if you're gonna have the lot up,
Yeah.
you might as well throw in the conduit. The last thing that I wanted to talk about really was the bathroom models refresh at Hilton.
Nice.
every other building in the last bond got that completed, and this was never done. So I'm just looking at scope. That was one that got missed and got missed again. And I'm thinking that that is a good.
There's something wrong with them.
There's,
They smell of urine really bad.
They should be cleaned then.
You can clean them till your heart condense, they just don't.
Well, the other
it's,
bathrooms are on the touchless.
Yeah.
And have hand dryers. Hilton still has regular faucets, turn on and off, and paper towel, and tiles, older tile. Other than that, I mean, we still function.
yeah, it's less about a full refurbishment as it is partitions and valves and, you know, all the automatic stuff. Just bringing them up to the standard that the rest of it is. I had it on my list, there is 6 gang bathrooms and 2.
No, we've got the 16 bathrooms, and then we've got the ones in the JK.
Yeah, I think there was 13 total individual bathrooms, and then there were 6 gang bathrooms.
I'm sorry, 6 what?
Gang bathrooms where there's multiple toilets
Right.
and sinks. Sorry, that gang bathroom is.
I just couldn't hear you.
Yep.
Have we put family bathrooms in every other building also? I can't remember, I think, I know the high school's now.
We've got one at Spencer.
I don't think Scranton does. Pardon?
I think there's one in the cafeteria at Spencer.
Okay. Just that could be a foreseeable thing for the future as well.
Yeah.
Um,
And then the rest of this list are things we felt are worthy of consideration and are going to need to be looked at and talked about either with contingency dollars moving forward, with applying some general fund dollars, or in future capital needs, you know, either sinking fund or future bond projects or something, but they're things that are definitely warrant consideration as we move forward.
Can we see the top 6 again? Scroll down. So if you don't mind me doing this now. So I see the field drainage and being I think we're gonna need more space over there at Scranton for that type of stuff, because I think when we see what we're doing over at Maltby, ultimately, we're gonna need more parking there ultimately. Why don't we just plan now to get that done so that area is a more buildable area for fields? I mean, we're already doing a parking lot, or a driveway through there. We could probably use a small parking lot out there, kind of like the likes of what we had over at, which one is it? Hilton is where we had, now we've got the asphalt in the back there by the baseball diamonds, but it used to be just a gravel driveway. Hawkins, thank you. You know, because the other thing we always have is people trying to get around the building and parking on the grass and everywhere else to get to those fields. While we're doing this, why not do something like that? Do this, if we're already putting the driveway in, maybe we can work some of this digging and stuff into the same package. Because you drain tiles, right?
You're
You can run
talking,
into probably those wetlands.
you're talking outside of just the fields, you're talking about the.
Well, I'm getting away from
the whole
that drain, yeah, because we're making a whole package back there. We're doing a driveway, which I think is needed for emergency egress. Let's put a little parking lot back there, and while they're digging all that stuff up, dig out the drain tiles, get it going, make it one big package deal. You can save some money by having one excavator do all of that. I assume the plan will be something like draining it to the existing wetlands that are towards the building anyways. So it's not a huge undertow. And then it allows us to use that for fields that we might very well need to replace from Maltby. I mean, and we haven't even talked about that parking lot over there yet, but I don't see a viable way to do great things there, but it certainly, they see a need for a lot more parking. That building is ultimate, let's face it, we built a building, we call it a practice field, but that thing's gonna hold a lot of people and gonna do a lot of stuff. So we kind of have to think all those things together, because if we spend a bunch of money on one thing, and then we end up moving it anyways.
So I would agree with Ken that this field drainage is, I really think it's a must. Haven't been out there. We've got these great fields that aren't usable. They're not reliable. John's not even scheduling teams on them because every time it rains, they're out of commission. I think this is just a no-brainer. And if you think about it, I mean, obviously you have baseball, softball, things like that in the spring and summer, but in the fall, when you have all the youth soccer, you just paint the fields, all the outfields become soccer fields, and whatever other sports. We're expanding Bark. Those are perfect for youth sports. So I would really strongly advocate for the drainage at Scranton. So.
Yeah, I mean, I hear what you're saying, Ken, about looking at what our long-term plan is there. I don't know that I'm ready to put more money into sports fields over there. I agree with Dr. Outlaw that correcting the drainage issue helps make what we have there usable. But I don't know that I'm ready to talk about putting more
No,
structure
I'm
back
talking
there.
about if it's done, it prepares us for the inevitable in the future. Because
Gotcha.
I do think we're gonna find out, and I'll just take this moment to say, we don't really know what it's gonna look like, what all that parking is gonna look like over at Maltby because of this building. I got a feeling it's gonna be a lot, which is fine. I mean, we built the building. I would like to see us in the programming stages of this thing, maybe program something, see what it does. Then, okay, that worked out, maybe we can add a couple of, let's not just schedule this thing to the hilt. I'm looking at you because I know that's you. I want to find out because I think.
Facility won't be, right?
Pardon?
Talking about the indoor
Yes,
facility.
which is, yes. So look, and I think those fields that are there might inevitably have to be some type of parking. And then we have another place to build those over at Scranton if that has to happen.
So,
But we need to do a trial run. We gotta slowly build a schedule and see how it affects us, because we might find out if we do some things, back to back, we're screwing ourselves with parking and traffic.
yeah, no, I think that's a fair consideration. Ken, I would say this, when Dr. Outlaw and Mike and I and the group were over there last week, we've got less parking spots than we originally thought. I thought between old and new would be about 70 for about 43.
Yeah.
And so our discussions with Brevard and the team up there was to conceptually come up with, because we've got to put a fire lane on the north side of the building and also on the west side of the building. And so we've got some property there that isn't where the septic field is. So what we asked them to conceptually do is come up with some parking options on the north side and on the west side, and kind of give us a ballpark number. Not just totally going out and putting a whole rectangular parking lot on either of those two fields, but being adjacent to the building. So you've got spots along the side of that building and also on the back of that building on the west side. So that's kind of the task that we left them at.
Are you talking like a milling type thing? Because once you pave it, now you're talking about drainage, retention ponds, and the other problem is they no longer think of it as a fire lane. Now you've just created a parking lot.
Well, we can't encroach on the fire lane.
Right.
By code.
Right.
So it would be adjacent to, but it would be hugging the building. Am I describing that kind of?
Yeah.
And we literally were just walking and talking, trying to come up with solutions to, the challenge that there's likely not enough parking there. I mean, let's just think about this. You have a marching band practice there. You have 150, 180 students, half of them drive, how many directors, and you just heard how many parking spots. So I think there needs to be more parking.
And I think there's property there for it, but we're going to displace something else. Because we don't have.
We're already displacing a little bit. I mean, obviously, we have the big lot between Mulkey and Horn.
Right.
And there's a connecting sidewalk. I understand human nature. Everybody wants to park by the
Be
door.
on the grass and everything
I
else.
get it.
That'll be
That's what you can get. But, I know youth football and youth lacrosse have used that site and, they park and, typically the 12 coaches will park in the little lot down there and moms and dads will park up top. I just was sharing kind of what we tasked the group to look at and kind of come back with us at. You know,
So Jen, the fire lane that existing, or that we're putting in now, is that millions or is that national?
that's asphalt.
It's gonna be.
Yeah, that's a third, it's actual asphalt road. There's a crash gate on the west side.
How will you stop people from parking?
Guaranteed,
Exactly.
just like everywhere else in the district.
Exactly. So inevitably, you've got parking when you do something like that. Whether you like it or not, that's what's gonna happen.
Yeah, unless you put a crash gate up there, like you're doing. on the-
And they don't want that there either, because then they've got to crash through it to get the truck in there too. Okay, yeah, I think that's a bigger talk, but as long as that was, that drainage field, I've often thought that that's really the only other place to put more fields if we're gonna need it. We've got a lot of property back there, it's just not useful. And if we make it useful, it'll make it easier in the future to go, well, put another field back there then, because we need the parking over here, or wherever else we're at.
Well, I think you could look at, I think you could look at saving space there for either field or parking, and make those decisions down the road.
Yeah.
Right now, the drainage for the last, literally, I skip booking those facilities. Because it doesn't work.
And it's a shame, because they built all those really nice new dugouts and everything there. Yeah, it's really nice back there when it's dry.
It's a great spot when it's dry, but, the fields were originally built with zero drainage on a clay surface.
Yeah, is that 150 a real number?
It's pretty close. I can tell you the two ball diamonds, softball's in a lot better shape. We quoted it 2 years ago. That was about 10, 11 grand. The hardball field there is in a lot worse shape. That came in about 52,000. So if I had to guess now, if we were to get a quote, probably maybe around 70, 75. And then the two grass fields is, you're just running vertical or horizontal drainage.
So we're gaining, if we do it for $150,000, we're gaining use of how many fields total?
2 full-length soccer / football / lacrosse, 2 rectangle fields.
Right.
Anything you can play rectangle sports on.
And the baseball diamonds as well?
And the hardball and the softball.
That's,
Which can also be used, their outfields would be
Yeah,
used
and right now
for
we're using
youth
outfield.
soccer and so on and so forth.
Youth
So,
football's using baseball outfield right now for the last few years.
I guess I personally would love to say just do it. I mean, you're looking at putting some welds on a flooring that's gonna cost that much, and, most people don't even know it's got a problem. This is gonna affect a lot of kids throughout the entire district, so I
Yeah.
kind of look at it like
Much,
that.
much better use of money.
Yeah, I mean, pretty economical.
I think we need to go through these and do some and get them done. Again, this is a no-brainer. It wasn't included in the road bid, right?
No, so.
So, just, I think the board, my position on this is this has to be done. I played in those fields for 20 years or 30, whatever it's been, however long.
are we okay green lighting that one?
I think we should discuss as a board and just call it good to go.
I would like to see those, because you're gonna be putting drain tiles in probably for that driveway, aren't you? Is it gonna be something or no? I don't remember how it was designed. No,
I don't think we agree. You're gonna have to,
but you'll have excavators out there and whatnot, maybe you can get a package deal to do the drainage for it.
quite frankly, it's probably gonna be 2 different subs. You have, there's specialty subs that do fields. You don't want a road builder doing your fields.
Whenever you've done fields, we'll do that one way, and notoriously, that person will come back, especially you can say, oh, no, this is how I do it, this is how I do it.
Yeah.
So-
There's a few specialty guys. that
We've
do
got
fields.
2 or 3 people on a list, and that's what they do.
It might be such a thing that.
So do we need to vote on this, Roger? We just.
Well, I think a consensus that that's a priority that we'd like to move forward.
Yeah, we need to be.
We'll have to bid it and bring it back.
Consensus? Obviously, it's got to come back, so, okay.
Yeah, it's got to come back before we spend the money, but I think we're all
All
in
right, I'm going to
agreement.
put down that board is given a green light to proceed on that one, so.
So this next one, we got multi-flooring, that absolutely has to be done, it's maintenance. So we can get consensus on that. That's maintenance and repair, but it's never been done probably before, right? The original floor.
John, what was that?
The flooring for the cafeteria at Mulvey, number 2.
I mean, that's just maintenance and repair. Now, does that,
I think
be
it-
general fund or it could be bond, either one, right?
I don't think it's the original, because the stage, that up there has gotta be the original. The elevated stage behind there, so, but either way, it's
Seen its time, so that's maintenance. So
Yeah, so we have consensus for that one as well then?
Yeah.
That's the cafeteria fly?
Yep.
I agree.
And you look at this number 3, the man lift, my position as the technician on the board is that we can rent it for now as we need it. And this expense could come in and maybe we need to spend that 2 years from now as this stuff gets older, or 3 when it's used more, I don't know. But maybe we plan on renting one, for a week out of the year. The problem is when you want to fix a light and it's burned out, you gotta go get the man lift to fix one light and rent it for one program. You can't wait till 10 burn out and do them all at once. That's the only negative to that. So but my position, like I said, I say no on 100,000 for now, because we can go rent one. What's it cost a week to rent one? $1,000 a week or something? Yeah, so that'd be. Yeah.
So what else is it used for besides light?
Anything to get up high.
Parking lots, structures inside the building,
Lights.
the high stuff.
So I mean, if we start seeing that we're doing that 3-4, after this building opens up, if
I
we're
would
getting
look
it
at the
3-4 times
expense.
a month, maybe it's time to say, okay, bye.
And
Right.
what you don't see is the labor it takes to go pick one up on a trailer and then bring it back to the school. I don't see that, but the reality is that it's still, we'll know how much we're spending on a 60-foot lift to rent it within a year or 2 or 3. We'll say we just spent $10,000 to rent the lift. Should we spend $100,000 to buy one so we don't have to go? And that's how I look at that as your technician.
Yeah,
Could-
I mean, I can support that because it's going to be the indoor practice facilities where will be most needed because we're trying to lower the parking lot poles as we go. There were some 45-foot poles and we're trying to replace them with 25.
Neighbors are gonna love those. 45
What
footers.
does this look like? Is this like a scissor lift that's just on, one of the ones with the big tires on it that just keeps going up, or is it a truck?
We've looked at 2 or 3 different.
Some are articulating out,
Right.
as well. Some are tow behind.
Yeah.
With the riggers, so.
'Cause I also think about, the high school ceilings, because I know they basically max that thing out to get up there. But is it something that could get in there? It might be too big, I don't know. I just think of the uses, that's all. Okay,
We can wait on that.
So,
consensus to table it to see if we need it?
Well, I was going to suggest, I know that we don't have the indoor practice facility yet, but we have a lot of other things that we would use this equipment for. So if we could see numbers on how much we spend, right, that might give us a better idea of whether this is going to be a necessary expense.
We can wait. It was just tied in with what we're currently building.
I like Alicia's thing. Let's see how much we spent in the past. Can we do that?
Probably hard to quantify some of it, because you do borrow from
Oh, you
a
can call,
certain individual in
you
the
can,
town that was always letting you use it.
no, you can call a rental place and see what we spent on it. They'll know exactly how many times you rented it. All you do is give them your name and number.
No, what I was saying is, the last couple of times I got recorded.
Oh, you borrowed it. No.
Yeah.
That's,
The only problem was borrowing is it was a boom truck typically, whereas now we gotta,
Bill.
it's gonna be on a turf field, so it
Inside.
becomes a whole nother
the tires. and
issue,
tracks.
so. We can move forward.
This next one is for what irrigation sprinkler system. We absolutely have to have one.
Well, hold on a second.
When
This
you're
kind of
ready.
goes back to what I was thinking
I
before.
know.
We don't know what we're gonna have to do to
I
this
do.
field.
Regardless of what my position is, we're not doing anything more than we've already done. We're over budget by $1 million already. Okay,
Yeah,
so what's it gonna do for teaching our kids to help them get academic help and move forward? Okay,
I'm just looking
again, I
at,
heard everything you said and I appreciate it. We're
we might be
doing-
parking cars on that lawn.
Well, then
And
you
then
Well-
we're gonna be watering water.
then you'll be ruining your sprinklers potentially too if it's up. So, but I'm just saying, if you're gonna take care of this place, how it's built, you gotta have an irrigation sprinkler system to keep it up to speed. Because you can't be hauling sprinklers around, nobody can go and drag hoses around and do that. If it's, like you said, gonna get redeveloped, obviously we don't wanna put $40,000 in the ground and tear it up and put parking lot over top of it. But if we're gonna be satisfied that we're moving forward with as it was designed, maybe we hold it up for a year and see what
That's what I was
happens.
thinking.
So that's fine, so
Just
that's
see what-
holding pattern, but I would definitely look at sprinkling that thing to make it so it turns out nice and it
It
stays
has a really
nice.
nice sprinkler system.
I know, yes, yeah, but that's the point though. We want to keep this facility, that's why we're gonna do the curbs or whatever, and we're gonna take care of things, so it's 100% in a commercial entity. So, but I think you have to have them. So it'd be a must-have once you decide you're not doing anything else. How's that?
So guys.
Which
that-
I think prioritizes the conversation about what our future plans are for that space so that we can make the decision. Because if we're asking the contractor to take those fields back to playable fields in the meantime, the grass is just going to die or not grow if we don't put in the sprinkler system now. So we'll have a field of dirt until we make a decision next year, which I'm not sure that's really
I rode
what
in
we
dirt
want either.
roads when those fields were cut a long time ago, years ago, decades ago. So the issue is that they need to be usable. We're gonna have them, and that's my position on it. So if the other stuff's in the future, 5 years from now, and the parking lots are, you need to make them usable for 40,000 for 5 years.
Right.
And it gets to 40, so that's just my position.
I refer to the people that take care of this place. I mean, if you think,
So in short, you've got there's two rectangle fields. One will now be a little smaller because of the building, that go this way. So one field closest to Brighton Road is tore up, that's the staging area. They have to restore that and put grass back. So the other field on the other side of the construction fence, we're using what they had. But what we're talking about is with irrigation, that yes, you put it in at the staging site where it's all tore up, but at the same time, just go over the next field too. So both fields would be done.
So how many fields do we
By
have?
contract, it has to restore
Two.
the construction site.
Yeah, two, but the question is if you're going to add parking, and again, my bias, I think that there's no way that you're not going to add
In
parking,
the future.
So-
or maybe as part of this contingency piece. The question mark was, do you lose part of that small field that's closest to Brighton Road? You definitely will have the other field for sure. But that's one of the questions for the
So
board.
then but the restoration of the land doesn't include fixing our sprinklers that were already there?
we pretty much covered the area that was sprinkled.
Yeah, so they have an obligation to fix some of it. But you don't have an obligation on the north field. It connects to it, so it's kind of a gray area, John, to be honest with you.
Well-
We'll probably end up arguing about it a little bit.
Yeah.
So if there's two complete fields there, there's one, you said partial field, it's not a complete.
It's gonna be narrower than it was because the building cuts into the west a little bit more.
So it wouldn't be a regulation size field then.
You'll be about 50 yards. So for that age group, you're gonna be fine.
Could the board agree to allow this, that whatever fields need to be irrigated up to $40,000, that it could be done? So if it ends up being one field, then you do one field, but it's going to need to be done. You're going to need irrigation on the one field for sure.
But is this gonna be impacted by a future change, which with the road and parking?
Well,
Only one of two fields. If you do expand your parking, it would only potentially impact one of the two fields.
You would never use both those fields for parking. You'd have basically asphalt from Brighton Road over to the Ball Diamond by Horning then.
We're laughing now, but wait and see.
no.
Oh.
And I guess my question is, if we are contemplating those changes, how quickly are they happening? Right? So we're not going to get the asphalt to show up tomorrow and lay additional parking before the school year starts, right? So that would be part of the package that we're bidding for next year. So how do we expect those fields to exist between now and next summer at a minimum, right? We've got a year that we have to care for those fields before we can contemplate doing anything else with them.
Well, and even conceptually, with what we tasked them to look at and come back to us with, that's not gonna impact the space that we're talking about, that needs water.
I'll give you the $40,000 to do whatever you have to do, I guess. It's not a huge amount of money. I'll cross my fingers and hope I'm wrong.
it's gonna do the whole irrigation for the whole site. Correct. It's
Yeah.
not just the fields, this is gonna take care of the irrigation for all the new stuff and around the construction, and this is basically gonna irrigate the site, correct?
I think, what's there though besides parking?
And not much, but I'm saying, we're gonna
Yeah.
have, if we got little planters, we're gonna have some little sprayers in there, they're gonna water the planters. I mean, this
We were just talking the fields.
this is strictly the fields
That's,
And honestly, John, there's no real landscaping there.
that you have to worry about.
Your,
Preserve.
your asphalt in front of that building, right up to the walls, or right up to the sidewalk to the walls, on the Bright Lake roadside, you know, there's about 5 feet of property left before you get to the sidewalk.
Gotcha.
I mean, and on the west end, that's,
So this
that's
is,
where the field we're talking about.
I think we have to have those fields operable 100%. I support it.
So the idea would be that there would be a consensus to authorize up to 40,000. That number may come in less if through further discussion, either because the contractor as part of the restoration work adds sprinklers in for that, the staging area. But the details of that would have to be fleshed out as some further decisions are made regarding the two fields, basically.
And we should know more, probably, you know, a week from now.
When is the asphalt scheduled to go in for the fire lane and for the,
Oh, you remember that?
So there's no asphalt on the fire lanes, those are stone.
okay,
So those will be going in the next couple of weeks. I mean, they're scheduled to be done with pretty much everything by first week of September, so. So they got everything ready, they're gonna start, you know, the pavement's getting ready to, you know, the curbs are in over there. Yeah, about 3 or 4 weeks, they'll be pretty much done with that. They're
just the.
Brevard will be done with their construction project, so that's to put the
Just
turf
the
field
approach.
in and all that stuff yet, so.
so the restoration work for the staging area on the west side, that restoration work would then take place in late September? Is that?
Yeah, mid-September, yeah, yes. They're starting to clean it up right now. You know,
Yeah,
getting all their stuff out of there, but at some point, they'll have to pull down the fence and start regrading it and putting some irrigation in, putting the grass in, so.
How does that work? Are we putting a fence there then, where that entrance onto Brighton Road is?
Yeah,
Then only
there's a
fire
lot,
trucks
there's
can come
a
in?
gate, there's a fire gate there.
I'm
The knock spots.
just clarifying, just, so I'm 99% sure that those roads that we're putting into the fire department are asphalt.
But we changed that so we could, well,
Because, yeah, we wouldn't
We
be
might
able,
have,
we wouldn't be able to plow, we wouldn't be, you
I
know,
think you're right, that would be.
yeah, so
Yeah,
they're gonna be,
that
they're gonna be doing asphalt.
That we.
So that'll be happening in the next couple of weeks, so.
Yeah.
Because they're getting-
Well, we should,
Better talk to Brevard, because I don't think that was their thoughts. I think Pete was telling us that it's stone behind the.
The fire trucks have snow plows on them, they'll be. That's one from Brian. It'll be fine.
I'll double check.
okay, so
Pretty sure we're asphalt.
are we good with the authorization up to 40,000, the details of which?
To come back, yeah.
Yeah. up to
Yes.
40,000, John, there you go. Okay.
Digital sign.
The digital sign,
We're just thinking that's the last building, doesn't have one. So if we're doing the parking lot, we're just thinking we're gonna put one in.
But that's just the plumbing for it, or is that the whole thing?
No, that's the sign itself.
Not the plumbing to it, not the lighting.
We haven't talked about the conduit to it, but we figured we'd just do that while we're doing the work.
Well, we have power already up there, don't we? To the sign currently.
There may be power, but there'll have to be a data.
Is there,
Data.
have any of the other signs in any of the buildings been done by the PTOs?
Yes, I know that the Hilton one was just done by the
I was
PTO.
gonna say, I
That's,
saw them raising money for it, I didn't know where they got from it. Is that something they wanna do?
That,
Not if they get it for free, I get it.
sure. But
I know it would have to be under the direction of how we have to make sure it's installed properly, but I imagine
yeah,
that's how.
that's where I'm going, is
Yeah.
it sometimes the PTO projects turn,
We just gotta set parameters.
You can get one, but we're gonna make sure you install it.
Well, but part of doing it ourselves is timing it with the parking lot so that we're not damaging the parking lot to do this later.
And I think you can lay the, make it so that it's able to be done. Because that's at Hilton, they paid for the sign, we paid for the conduit so that you could get the technology out there so that they could run the sign. And I think it would be difficult to pay for the entire thing at Spencer when the other schools have, PTOs have gone out and raised. And so I don't know, I think that's just a consideration. That's probably something to look into a little bit.
All the other PTOs,
I
don't know, just-
I have no idea. I know that Hilton paid, did the district pay for everybody else other than Hilton?
So what's the purpose of a digital sign in a school anyway?
I guess the same thing that's going on at Longview, tells you what's going on, current events. If that happens to be the
I mean-
only building you're driving to for 4 years, you see what's going on in the district. You know, is it a need? No,
No,
but
It's also maintenance item. Digital signs don't last. So, like a sign plate or changing some tube, they require maintenance. 20,000 is pretty cheap. What
I
size is
think we
that?
need to do a better job of keeping them updated in terms of the text on them.
That's the other thing. Who takes care of that? So
Yeah.
what's the maintenance? What do we spend on the digital signs we have now for maintenance? Do we know?
I'm not sure what our maintenance agreement is. Usually do it for a 3-year maintenance agreement. $80,000, $4,000, it's not.
Per sign
Yeah, no, for the entire.
for the agreement?
that's not bad.
Well, but it's another $4,000 in the maintenance fund that,
Yeah.
that, that you're talking about having a urine smell in one of the schools. If we spend $4,000 to get that, rid of that. But I don't go for urine smell in the bathrooms at all. None, in my opinion. So, well, I don't know.
I will,
I don't know.
go ahead.
I think all the other schools have it, and I mean, it's aesthetic. I mean, makes it look nice, and
It depends who you talk to, though. Some people hate them. Look, I've got more phone calls on some of our signs that you don't even want to know about. They're awful. So at night, they go by their homes, they live in areas with their homes and areas that they're almost like up north, and all of a sudden they go by this glaring sign in the middle of the countryside. So it's two ways. I mean, I'll go with whatever you guys decide, but I'd say that it should be last on the list. If there's extra money to buy a sign, that can come out of general fund too.
That was my thought as well, is that this is a small enough expense that we don't need to spend bond dollars on this if we decide we want to do it.
As long as we fund for it.
Yeah, I mean, we should probably do that as we lay the parking lot, just in case
Right.
we make that switch later, but
We
I,
have wired out there because digital and hand drawings, so these are sometimes lower
It's
end drawings.
technology is the issue, not the electric.
We're actually planning out the signs now. Okay. Out there. There's definitely.
Okay, so you gotta have cables to run here, so you don't know what the.
It's just a matter of running two plastic conduits out there. It's not very cheap.
Not a lot.
You can also go around the parking lot.
You can pull the wire and everything later. as long as you get
Yeah.
conduits.
right.
It'd be a shorter run as far as the fiber is concerned.
I got
You talk about trouble,
Gotcha.
around, you talk about
I understand, I got it.
quadruple.
So what's it gonna cost to
Are
do that?
we good with having
Windows 5.
the conduit infrastructure installed?
It's part of the plan for the parking lot next year, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Question. How did you pay for the other signs in the other schools?
So that's fine.
Bond money? Okay.
Other than Hilton paid 100% of theirs just this year.
Why
And they
why
did-
was Spencer missed then? You know, why?
Well,
Same reason
Hilton
that
and
was
Spencer were
too.
missed, and Hilton's PTO just paid for the whole thing. I know that it's gonna be a little
Yeah.
issue.
One at the high school was BCPA/athletics.
Right.
The thought behind putting one at Hawkins and one over at the corner of Mulkey and Horning was high traffic areas. So people at the time that were sitting at the table or in the offices thought there was good value in being able to get our word out at those locations.
Right, well, then they're at intersections, people are sitting there for a while,
Right.
reading it, whereas.
That was kind of the thought process.
When you're driving
People
by
told
at
you.
40 miles an hour or whatever, you're not maybe necessarily gonna see, but I get it. Well,
35 on Spencer Road.
35.
35.
Well, depends on if you have a lead foot or not.
35 on Spencer Road, please.
Well, you do have traffic going in and out of the school lot though.
You do, yeah.
So-
Is that
I mean,
where, is that
I'm
where
not
the
against
45 is
digital
at?
signs. I
Is
just,
that where the 45 is? Is that coming out of the parking lot?
Yeah, no, so people going into the.
All right, so that's what we're gonna commit to.
we're comfortable with the infrastructure, not yet comfortable with
Not
the
bond
sign.
dollars, it's gonna be general fund expenditure. How can a digital sign be part of a bond? Our bond dollars are supposed to pay for these other kind of things that were assigned to the bond. What's a sign have to do with education? So, just a thought.
Previous bond, so not in this
We had
one.
digital signs in the previous bond.
I don't know. I didn't work here, so.
Yeah, part of the technology side.
Yeah.
Like I said, it's general fund expenditure, if you guys want to spend it on good, but not bond dollars.
All right, so then the last of the 6 was the bathrooms in Hilton.
Absolutely good.
I say we
That's
gotta
my
go-
opinion.
I say we gotta go walk through them. I think
I've been in them already.
I've been in them 20 years.
The fact of the matter is, they're 60 years old, that's the whole point.
Hilton's,
They're the original bathrooms.
Hilton School is not 60 years
Hilton,
old.
Hilton's built,
How
yeah,
old is Hilton School?
1990s, so
It's not
does
60, practically 60.
I'm not that old.
30.
But anyways, the fact of the matter is, we've remodeled every other bathroom in the district.
So 300.
That, now, I have a bigger issue with that than whether or not, my kids had a sign.
$325,000.
And that is a complete ballpark. I estimated that myself. That's nothing scientific about that one.
Well, so why don't we come back with because we don't really have a scope, like if it's.
I'd like some pictures, I'll go
Right.
over myself and
Right,
look at it.
like the
give me some pictures
touchless,
of
we're talking
why.
about just replacing the touchless, faucets and hand dryers, or are we redoing the flooring, the ceiling, I think that's what's that would be helpful, is to get a defined scope and a better idea of estimated.
So how about more investigation needed?
With some prices.
Is that okay? Just leave it there?
Right, he's right there, he's the
Okay.
price guy. He's glad to do it.
Right, he is on scope.
No, I had checked with the architect on square footage, and then I just estimated all the square footages real quick and multiplied it out.
That's not
Right,
If you're just doing
Close.
refurbish and, partitions and fixtures and
Hand dryers.
whatnot, then if it's a light remodel, it's a lot less than if you're gonna do tile work, stuff like that. So
But that's something we've done, we brought them up to date some colors.
we have, but we coordinated with the principal. He felt we could do just a refurbish, but we'll take a look at it further and bring back something that makes sense.
Option A, B, C.
Yeah.
I
think that's-
Okay,
I think that's good.
that's good.
Roger, would it, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Of the things that were on that top 15 list, the remodels and fume hoods at the high school, I thought I would like to get some more information on, because I think the opportunity to upgrade our science labs with bond dollars would fit very well with the STEAM focus of the bond and what we promise to our district. And if we have those contingency dollars, I think that's a great place to put it. So I'd love to see some more about what you guys are thinking there. Yeah.
If I could piggyback on what you said, I'd be curious to know how much we do with hoods. I
No,
mean, I don't know if we still do a lot of that.
so that was a combination of 2 items that were on the big list. Because the high school is asking, at least in probably half the science classes, and Scott and I went through them last year and got some estimates on adding fume hoods, because there are none. And so
So we
The-
can't do the things that require the fume hoods.
correct. So the principal was asking me if I was going to put those fume hoods in, and I said, not if we're going to remodel the rooms. I don't see any point in putting a brand new fume hood in if you're gonna do a complete demo and remodel. So that's why I combined the 2. But fume hoods would just be part of a natural remodel to bring it up to actual today's current standards.
So in that, which goes all the way back to this 2017 dream sheet and 18, and we all talked about this. That was the idea, is to look at what it was gonna take in this scope of work to bring things up to a level that we have these high expectations for. And to actually be able to conduct the things we want to do in our science classes that we haven't done. And that not having doing, and let's say that only 2 of the science rooms get all of it, well, at least then the students can go in the other science room and use it to get going. We can't do all of them to start with, so kind of a cost per room to bring them up to total speed. And then, like you said, if it's a work environment, even in the STEAM lab, if that's where they have to go to do certain experiment, they can do them. So having the opportunity, so we don't have to say, really is, I think, the key, and I think we all agreed on that originally, to see what it would take to do that. Because I know that at some school, I remember one school, we had a fundraiser, and it was about $3 million alone to update the science labs in a smaller school. So it's not cheap to do it.
Is that looking at all, I mean, how many labs did we look at?
I think that whole line, they're all,
I think there, what was there, 9?
there's a lot.
There's a, could be.
So but maybe we can do 4 of the 8. Maybe we can do, and look at maybe in between and do, I don't know. Maybe you got one that get and the other one can share to whatever they have to do. I don't know.
I think, I had talked to Scott, just give me a ballpark number on doing, and that's how I got this number. It was $150 a square foot was, I think, what, but there's a large range depending on what you want to do. It could go from 100 to 250 a square. It's all in the scope and the design. So that $1 million is just a placeholder. It was me sitting in my office saying, oh, we've got 9 rooms that maybe so many square foot of room times whatever, and giving you an idea that this is going to be a bigger ticket item, that if we're going to look at it, it's going to require more investigation.
But it's possible not to do demo. It's possible to restore and bring things up to targets level that we want, because some of these countertops and cabinets can be restored, potentially be very nice, and then the added things can be added to them. So I wouldn't just say we're going to empty everything out and throw it away, because there's some really good stuff that we have that could really look really nice and professional. And
But we didn't want to run down that road until the board kind of had, that idea. And that, I mean, I can trot Scott in there now and say, okay, let's start thinking about it, if that's where the board wants to go.
I think a great thing is to at least have on a dream sheet for visionary anyway.
So I like this. I mean, I like the idea of investing in a science lab, but I kind of feel like we're shooting low a little bit. Like if, with the STEAM Center, how many years did you spend like dreaming up what was going to happen with these STEAM centers, and how many people were involved, and how many meetings, and just, to invest that kind of dollars without really going through and visiting and seeing what we want our science labs to look like in the future. And that's, yeah, I'm just throwing that out there, that I agree that the science labs are a spot where that would be amazing to like take that to the next level. But instead of getting a small correction, I'd love to like repaint it and come in with the ones that will have the best science labs in the state as part of this, larger investment. And so just throwing that out there, just
So how
a
does
thought.
that, from a timing standpoint, Dr. Love, fit with, I mean, if we're looking to bid out potentially everything by November 1st, we're never going to have that type of visioning to
Right.
figure out what we want to do.
But I think maybe what you do is we go smaller, and maybe we look at, maybe we're going to do just the chemistry labs or something like that. And we target, like one of the areas, or we target a couple things there, and we use it as a starting point instead of, and then, maybe you do a little bit more in there. Then instead of doing 9 rooms, maybe you do 2 really well. And that maybe that gives us enough time. And just throwing that out there, I'm thinking things like obviously your chemistry and physics in particular. Those are 2 that I think have really changed over time. And so anyway, I would enjoy being part of some of that. I think it'd be done quickly. I think your teachers could be part of that. But
I think that's a great idea. That's how you do it.
So,
Just a thought.
is everyone of the belief that they'd have further exploration of more of a targeted approach to a couple of the sciences and see?
And do an experiment at it, an experiment classroom, isn't that theory?
like a pilot. Here's a
pilot, there you go.
pilot classroom, and
There you go. And then that way
So-
you have a dream sheet, and then as you move forward, then you have a vision of what you want to do and other things, and maybe that'll be part of the future thing. You know, those are the- Okay. That's great.
So, I mean, obviously, there's a lot, I mean, you know, I don't know how many there are, there's like 90 topics, some of which are consolidated, I know, into these top 15 items. And we've got obviously some parameters on some of these items we've talked about, but is there any others within these topics that any of the, Dr. Allah, you want to?
there's one big one that I really would like the board to just talk about some of your thoughts. We need to get some ideas on this, and really it's about Malpe and about this access road. You know, we've kicked around some of these ideas, and we've talked. We really need to get an appetite for what the board is thinking on this. You know, and it really comes down to, you know, when we found out that we were going to have our fire access roads on the two sides around the, you know, the field house, the idea came up was, what if we connected those and we had a road, and maybe turning on a Brighton Road, we had a, you know, maybe a right-hand turn only lane or something along those lines. And then it develops into, you know, some folks threw out the idea of, what if we were to tie it into the main lot at Malpe? So that was another one. And then obviously we've had this conversation about, you know, where people are going to park, you know, if there's not enough parking at that facility. So really, we need to hear from the board, kind of, what are your thoughts, preferences? Because a lot of research needs to be done. I don't want to waste everybody's time going too far down a road. So if you don't mind, I would love to talk about that.
My opinion on the whole situation with that parking lot, I've seen a couple different ideas. Fact of the matter is, you got two large buildings with a lot of kids in them, and I don't think we're gonna pump money into it and find out that doesn't work. That's my concern. I wasn't convinced by what they told us. I just see so you get more traffic off the road, so now it's just inside, and now you gotta get it out again. I think I don't think there's a good fix for that place. I think we need to either learn to live with it, or it's something major, like we need the roads to change. I don't think we have the property to make that what we think we can. The Spencer one was easy, get the cars off the road and get them into the parking lot. Okay, that seems like it'll work, we'll see.
We'll see.
And the thing is, we can spend all this money on this stuff, and all of a sudden, everybody starts putting their kids back in buses in 2 years. I mean, that could change, the whole area could change. So I see that as a monumental, I mean, it's not a bad thing to want to make better. I just don't see how you can do it. We've got two buildings centered on each part of their property, looking at each other. If they were both pushed to the trees, we might have a chance, but we wouldn't have our athletic field there either. So that one, I think, is a monumental waste of money at this point. We put a bunch of money into thinking about it. We've done it
That's,
2 or 3
you're
times.
talking about tying it to the main parking lot.
Tie any of that. I don't think any of it's really gonna fix anything. It just redirects it, and it still has to get out onto Brighton Road and onto, what's that called right there?
Bauer.
So we can pump money into it. I don't think we're ever gonna be happy with it. I do think that the road coming in behind Scranton, for more reasons than one, because you brought that one up also. I think that's very important, because we got one way in and out. That's the
Yeah,
biggest
that
problem.
one's set.
But yeah,
That's already
we're not
done.
talking about it. I thought you brought that
So
up.
Malpe's
This is
the question mark.
Right, the
This is
Malpe,
all
I think
about
we're,
Malpe.
I think we're throwing money at it without really knowing what we're doing. And, I mean, you might get somebody that really does know what they're doing, saying, you're wasting your money, you can't do anything.
Well, we've had we hired the traffic engineer specifically for that purpose.
I understand that, but my common sense brain on that just didn't see it, big changes happening with what we were proposing. Personally.
How much have we spent already in practice facility? Where are we at?
Oh, 8 million probably.
How far over budget?
I think we're pretty much in line with where we were when we came to the board with it.
No, but initially though.
The bond.
Well, originally, there was only envisioned as a half of a, half a
Yeah.
field, it's not a full field.
Let's say you consolidated some of those line items down, you're maybe 4 million, so.
I'm done.
See, but
I-
But John, to me, this isn't about the practice facility.
I-
This is about Mulvey and Horning, and I appreciate your comment, Ken, about kids going back more prevalently on the buses. I've been taking my kids to Horning for 10 years, okay, 11 years, whatever. That has been a major problem way before COVID, way before we ever talked about a practice
Let's
facility.
clarify something. So we're not talking about adding extra help for the practice facility. We're talking about extra help for the parking lot for parents bringing in students.
In buses.
That's
and-
different.
Right,
That's a different
it's a
situation.
safety, right, that's what.
That's a different situation. I'm just saying I'm done adding anything to do with the practice facility. Build it, let's see what happens. And then this other, that's the different situation. So you can address me a different way on that. That's to do with parents and students and people getting out of school into the grade school, into the middle school.
Well, but I'm saying that was the whole point of the investigation of the
Right.
the road. It had nothing to do with the practice
That's
facility.
fine. We're on to that. I was mixing the two together.
That just created the opportunity to look at it because that was it.
It's because of the fact that that's.
I want to see that. I want to fix the schools so parents can get in and kids can get out safely, obviously, at any time. But we've sure done a lot there over the last several years, trying to make it better and different things and spend money in that parking lot in different ways. We have fixed it. So, but we have.
I don't know if it did, I mean, was there a traffic study done,
Years ago, I'm sure. I guess.
But I think we have to get to the level of a street light situation, a controlled street light. I mean, kind of like they monitored, they get people in and out, well, when the Palace was there, that's the one I used to know. They closed certain roads, they were one way, and they got as many people in and out as they could, and before you know it, everyone was out of there and you're moving, it worked well. It's the same situation, you got a building that's surrounded by roads that are busy all the time, bunch of people trying to get in and out at the same time, just like a concert. I think if we were gonna invest money in it, we need to look at what kind of a sign control can we do it with, and who mans it? Is it a police officer? Is it just something you can hit the switch and it does it?
I know, I'm just saying, I'm just a caveman lawyer. We hired a traffic engineer to do a full-blown analysis, and he's saying these options are gonna provide some significant relief. I mean, who am I to say, I don't get me wrong, and I respect your pessimism, because, this has been looked at before, and I
Significant relief, though, I should listen to that.
right, well, that's what I'm saying, I mean, why, I'm not gonna second guess, what the extra
Can we
says.
see a presentation and significant release and see the little things, the little laser things going around and the little cars and.
I mean, I don't know, probably, we can bring them back and have another.
I'm just saying, let's do a video when this thing opens in the next few months, a few weeks, and see what's really happening. And then look at what's happening live on time, or whatever you call it. And then say, okay, let's see your vision on how it's gonna fix that.
I would like to have
Have the old helicopter up there,
further,
take those pictures.
further input from the expert.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like we got that already from the traffic expert. I mean, he was very clear that adding that access road would make a difference to the congestion in the parking lot, because we could route the folks that wanted to turn onto Brighton Road to go that way instead of, clogging up the intersection of Bauer and Brighton. My concern was that we would be solving a traffic problem, but taking away even more of the green space that our students use. I mean, there will be no more Maltby Field Day where all of the students are outside at the same time, right? Because there isn't enough green space left now that we've got the field house there. So we're going to take up more of that for a road. And in my head, I am having a hard time visualizing what is left for the students, for the play structure that's there, for fields that are there, if we add an access road. So I don't know that I need more input from the traffic study side as much as I need a really rough sketch of what we are talking about and what that means for the green space left at the school or the usable space for other things.
Well, I'm pretty sure that design got rid of the two fields we're talking about,
Putting irrigation on,
putting irrigation
yeah.
because that's right where that road was going. And then it had to get so far to get past our septic field and then come back up. I mean, it looked like you get a lot of cars on it, for sure. You get a lot of cars off the road and into that driveway. But that was one of the downfalls.
Yep.
You do lose the fields.
Well, there were, my recollection, there were three options. I don't have it in front of me, but
That's the one I remember.
there were three. One was just the connection to the lower lot. One was, there were two different variations coming up from the upper lot. And obviously, each one had a different degree of relief that was being provided. I'm just saying, if there are people who are not convinced that there would be a benefit, that's why I would say bring them back in. But if that's not the issue, then we just have to decide if one of those options, the benefits of one of those options outweighs the detriment of losing field space. That's really what it boils down
I
to.
think we put that drone up there and take some pictures and see what this thing looks like when everybody drives in there. Get some, and do some real time tape and speed it up and watch how this whole works, what we have now. And then take the guy and overlay what the guy's vision was. And I'm not for giving up the fields.
Do you think having the two new officers over at this Horning and Maltby would be helpful with the traffic flow? I mean, I don't know what their duties are going to be over there, but.
Yeah, I think when our traffic engineer came on board, they studied everything. They studied the cameras and they also studied the lights. And one of the first things they figured out is the lights needed to get fixed. So they made a recommendation and the light was adjusted. And I was a Maltby parent at the time and it made a difference. So the light, the Bauer Brighton Road light did make a difference. The officers, I think in the lot, I think we've had enough people that have been around to help. I think it's just a lot of congestion. I think having Maltby and Horning both on the same campus, I think, and then Horning starting later, it's people waiting to drop kids off for Horning and then other people trying to get their kids to Maltby. It is crowded, it's congested. They've made it work, but again, this was the initial thought on this is that if we connected those two lower lots that we were already putting in, could we open up and free some congestion somehow with that? And then from there we said, gee, so what if it went all the way up to that main lot? Wow, that'd be great. What would that entail? So we have some of those drawings. We've talked about some of those drawings. So we can continue down the research on this if you want more information, but I didn't want us to go too far down this pathway if you're saying, let's abandon this and just look at this other stuff. So I guess the real question for the board is, do you want us to continue to go down this pathway and keep researching, keep looking into this more, or do we want to focus elsewhere? Just because I think this is like the elephant in the room. And I think
It's going to be a big ticket item.
Yeah.
Any of those things that you're talking about. So what we're really talking about is, are we doing science labs or are we doing these roads?
yeah, you're going right where I'm at because the dollars are going to get swallowed up quickly by this is a big, this is a big project. So
And you're talking about relieving congestion for a half hour or 45 minutes in the morning and a half hour, 45 minutes in the afternoon. I mean, it could be less than that too. And it's a lot of money to sink into a project for that amount of time. I mean, it could relieve some accidents and craziness in the parking lot, but it's a lot of money.
All right, I think I'm with Roger. And let's listen to the guy again and before we just pull our cord off there, let's just listen to, bring him in to the next meeting or whatever. Can you revisit this? Tell us what you were thinking. What are we talking about when it's going to alleviate? What does alleviate mean? Are we talking 5 cars or 20 cars? Are we talking 5 minutes or 20 minutes? If he can answer those questions, then that might help us all just make a decision on it.
What's the total students between both schools?
about 1,400 between the two.
Yeah, and
then staff- and then
like
staff.
The size of that campus versus like the size of the high school.
Yeah.
You're having, 1,400
Say we're
students.
2,000 at the high school.
Right.
Right. So I think, so there was some conversation, just initial drawing about, where would you put parking? What would it look like if you connected the roads? Just some preliminary conversations. I'd love for that conversation to continue because it's just hypothetical. Like, what would you do? And then maybe come back with some of that information. Because if that's not a big ticket item, that could make a big difference on that lower side of the parking lot. And based on those initial quotes, I don't know that that's as big a ticket item as what you're talking about. And you don't lose the green space, especially if you do need additional parking. And I really don't see any way we're not going to need additional parking for that field house. I can't.
I think one of the things that we talked about, especially because we may not be able to go left coming out of there back into town.
Onto Brighton Road.
But you could definitely funnel everybody that lives west of the property. Hey, that's the place to pick up your kid. Boom, I get my kid. I'm out, I make the right, I'm on the road. And whether it's Oak Point or any of those subdivisions on the left, any of those type of things. So that's some of the things that Matt and Mike and I asked them to kind of brainstorm on.
So,
Well, and especially, it's hard to keep it out for the scope of the Horning families. The majority are going to be, I think, last, right? That are coming out. So
yeah, a big chunk.
if you're gonna have, so when Horning lets out, that's gonna coincide with like the after school, like high schools, if whoever's using the facility in the after school, there's gonna be additional conflict of people coming to the facility to use it for after school when Horning's letting out, at least when Horning's letting out. So at least, that's what I'm saying. Those are the type of things where you can make it significant relief. To your point, John, about, the Horning families, all, the majority of them heading west where they live and getting them out of there versus in the pea soup up on Bauer. But,
Let's look at this idea.
Let's watch the drum.
So we'll continue to work on that. We're going to gather more information. We're going to need more discussion on this. I'm not hearing shut it down. And that was my main thing. We can shut it down. I think it's worth us exploring this a little bit further. We'll gather some more information and just keep the conversation going. But board, shut us down at any point on this conversation. But
Yeah, I agree with all that. I just want the people that are gonna be doing all that work, think about, we keep thinking about that lower lot, like it can't be changed. We can maybe plug into it from one end or the other. Think about it sprawling out, becoming bigger there. So it becomes
That's part
part
of
of
the things that we talked about.
So, yeah, because I've never heard that, but that's good. The other thing is, I think we're inevitably gonna get a roundabout at Bauer and Chilson there. What would that do to it? Because you do get an awful lot of backup to the railroad tracks and beyond when when school is in full session. What does a roundabout look like? Because they're doing them all over the place. Bauer Chalice, excuse me. I think it's coming. I've heard it talked about because it is a horrible, it's as bad a corner as Rickett and Wine and Lake is, and they're doing that one. So I think we got to think about that. Is that a plan? Because I've heard chit chat about it. And that might change the whole dynamics of the donut effect. So just a thought.
so can we bring this back next? Maybe we just keep chipping away at some of these topics, each one of our bond committee meetings, like in September we come
I
back.
don't know if anyone else has any other input on these topics, but the other thing that I wanted to raise was, I know that there's been you've conveyed some information to us, Dr. Rawa, about the consideration of whether we want to explore the expansion of our preschool programming. And I think if we are going to be interested in exploring that, then the next question becomes, from a facility standpoint, if we are going to try to do that, how are we going to potentially accommodate the growth of that program? Are we gonna, what are we gonna do? Where would be the potential options for expansion of our facilities to accommodate that? I personally think it's a great idea to look at expanding those options in our community.
There's a definite need in the community, for sure.
Oh, for sure. But if we are, we're gonna have to look at our facilities and figure out what are we, how are we gonna accommodate that expansion. I think that's something that, if we're gonna decide that as a board, we should do that first and then get options from you as far as, from a facility standpoint, how we're gonna bring that to fruition. So, okay?
Okay,
Anything else?
great.
Okay.
Couple things for our bond, here, solar panels for the high school.
So we took bids. We got one bid. They did not bid what was specified. They bid their own alternate. So we're gonna review that with the design team on Thursday, just to kind of talk to them and see why they didn't bid as designed. So that's kind of where we're at with that one right now. And then once we get through with them, we'll bring a recommendation or something back to the board to make a decision.
Our time charging stations for the high school steam center, for the
What was
electric
that?
car charging stations. For the high
Those,
school.
they're out of order.
Okay, for the high school.
It's in process yet for the high school, yep.
Okay, and then, how much money do we have set aside right now for the bridge steam addition?
That was.
600,000 or 700,000?
6.
The renovation's at 657. So the renovation, renovate the CTE wing, right?
Yes.
657.
So again, CTE standing for Career Technical Education / STEAM STEM. So we got a whole wing of the school sitting down there that's basically empty. And,
Well.
you know, what's that?
Not quite empty.
Pretty filled now.
You filled it back up?
Oh, yeah.
You emptied it out?
Everybody's getting rid of stuff. All the bookshelves, the media centers, is no longer needed, and all that.
Well, it will be all right for the minute, but anyway, just bring it to the board's attention. And then, that's all right.
All right, so, Mike?
Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna move on. We had, for informational purposes, item 3, as time permits, in the hour and a half, and we're already beyond the hour and a half. So I was just gonna, rather than going through, does anyone have any questions regarding the items that are identified A through H regarding the ongoing work?
So probably the best way to summarize it, we met with all the principals yesterday. We don't foresee any issues with turning over any of the spaces for start of school, although we are tight. Furniture is being delivered the week before school. We are working with a couple of schools because we moved all the furniture into the cafeteria, but they need it. We don't have movers to move all the books back in the school till the first week of school. So we're working with Scott and everybody trying to figure out how to, that's one of our things we gotta figure out. There are some things that are not gonna be here for the start of school, but I think we have a workaround on everything. The only wild card always is the inspectors. We have them scheduled, so hopefully they don't have any issues. So that's kind of where we're at right now. So, I mean, we're in about as good a shape as we can be right at this point.
Here's an inspector in the state of Michigan that is gonna not open a school, so they'll come up with an alternative.
Yeah, I don't, with what we're doing, I don't see a big issue. I mean, we got the fire marshal scheduled, we got the, even when we did Scranton, we didn't get the final. Last summer, we didn't get the final.
Yeah, temporary.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't see an issue with it, but they're scheduled. You never know, but I think that'll be fun. But I think we should be okay. And, but yeah, we will have some things that will be going into the school year that we'll be doing, and we're working those issues out with each of the principals to figure out how we're gonna get them. We got the lockers going into the morning, and Spencer, the lockers for Scranton that we thought we'd be here for the summer aren't gonna be here till October. So we've been talking with the principals over there and coming up with a plan. The windows that we're gonna replace the Maltby won't be here till the end of September. Just anything aluminum and big metal is just an issue right now. So aluminum doors and windows are pain right now. Just take forever.
On that date stuff, we pushed out talking about when we would start school, which that will end because this bond stuff's going in. And I would like the board and the superintendent to consider our start date of school, not this year, obviously it's already set, but the following calendar. Because of the other schools are all on different schedules than we are. Oh, where's everybody at? They're starting, they're in school now.
Oh, starting tomorrow.
Next week. Oh.
Yeah, Howell and Heartland start tomorrow, and then Pinckney and Fowlerville start 1 week before us. About 80%, 85%, I don't know the exact number based on current collective bargaining agreements, start after Labor Day. The state law still is that you're supposed to start after Labor Day, but you are able to sign waivers to start earlier. So there are about 15% of districts that do start earlier. There are pros and cons to different models. The reality is that it's what you do with whatever dates that you have. That's what matters. So you could start on October 1st, August 1st, September 6th. If you got to make every day count, that's what matters.
My thought was that it's in order for us to work in collaboration with the other schools, it's been harder to do the classes that we work between each other, you know. What's it called again?
The consortium.
Consortium. Yeah, and then also Howell's on the old schedule, I understand, from the COVID era. Is that correct? They run like an hour and a half long classroom, or 2 hour long
Yeah, at their high school level.
at their high school. So that again takes, how does a Brighton student get to go there, and how does their student get to go with us? So again, back to the unification of projects and programs that we want to have robust, and I'm dreaming about the health occupations program, just having a great opportunity for all students countywide, let alone ours, and everybody who want to come. So just to think about the future.
I appreciate that. Being a guy that works on school buildings, I also would advocate for after holiday. But I'm in a district where they're not.
But we can work with their superintendents, I don't know, I'm just talking out loud for the dream sheet.
Anytime you're gonna be fine, we're.
But I get it, here 2 weeks, but I want to mid-September. It'll be-
For the
absolutely.
for construction.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't see this being an option for us to make any moves until after the bond is completely done. I just don't know how we can give up a week. I mean, so.
Any further?
Yeah, I don't want to keep us longer, but I feel like I have to because we have some timing thing. There's 2 items that we either need some direction or some consensus or something because they're timing related. Anyway, I'll just go into them. 1, Bernie has been directed to put in a collar at the baseball field. And Bernie, you may have to explain what that is, but a halo, a halo. It's somewhat time sensitive because of the adhesive only works in certain temperature ranges. But we just need to get some direction.
So this was a request from Bill, basically, and we got pricing on it. They've got, it's a collar around the home plate. So basically, and a lot of major stadiums are doing it now. It's a section of about 4 foot of artificial turf that goes around the home plate, about 15 feet back. It creates a border between the grass and but we have to pour concrete footing, or basically we pour concrete sidewalk down, and then we put the artificial turf with it's got a design in it and everything, Brighton Bulldogs design in it and everything, and we've gotten the price, and I haven't done anything with it yet, but
What is the price?
So it's behind home plate.
it's like, it goes from like baseline to baseline around the whole, yeah, so like from third baseline all the way around the first baseline in a circle.
So it's 90 feet from third base, so it's basically 180 feet.
No, it goes just around the home plate.
Oh, so it doesn't go all the way to the.
No, it doesn't go all the way to the
Oh, I
bases,
gotcha.
nope.
What's
So-
the benefit?
So I asked Bill that yesterday, why would I possibly do that? And he said, well, so home plate doesn't wash out, which I don't think it's ever washed out. But
So
it's
What's the
kind of,
cost?
the piece of turf is, just the turf itself is $12,000. Plus we have to we have to put in the concrete base. I don't have a price for that yet, but I'm assuming that's gonna be, because it is, you just can't drive a tractor out onto that field, without destroying all the grass. So it's a lot of handwork. I'm guessing that we're gonna probably be almost the same to build that concrete pad that this thing goes on. So I'm thinking it's right around $25,000 to $30,000 to install this.
No, thank you. You
You
would, and no, thank you. If it's not a problem that we're having from a maintenance perspective or playability of the field, I don't see the need for the $24,000.
I agree.
How much did we spend on those fields?
We haven't spent anything on the high school field. Well, what's that? Oh, I don't know.
But there'd be two that you'd want to do in the future, right? I got the idea. It sure be nice cosmetically, but I'm good with not doing it, but it's part of the, why does it say 60,000 in
So we were told 30,000 initially, and there's a important law, Title IX, that so I just doubled it, that we would need to make an investment in softball if you were going to do that. And I don't know what that would be, because a halo would not work, because the way the softball fields are designed, it wouldn't have a halo. But so that's why I doubled. That's where the 60 came from.
Yeah, and I would rather buy science lab equipment.
this
Okay.
Nice to have them, but
We were just getting a lot of conflicting and confusing on what we were doing, so I just wanted to see what the board's
it wasn't part of
consensus
another
was.
project though? This wasn't like completing something?
Not to my knowledge.
Consensus is-
So, okay, second one
I mean,
is,
is that true of everyone? Gotcha.
It's true, it's a no.
That's it.
next one is, and this is, we're in, anyway.
Just a bit.
All right, there's, all of the millings from the VIP parking lot have been now stored behind the high school. We have a 25-foot mountain of millings, both fine millings and large chunks.
I can give you my address, deliver, yes.
They do make a nice driveway. But the request, I guess, is to now spread them all the way around the lake as a path. So. I
But
think there's
replacing a path that we already have that's covered in wood chips and mulch, right?
I believe so, yeah. So we're just trying to figure out, that's,
Is it something that we have to dispose of?
It was originally in the plan for those to be hauled off site. I was instructed that they were to stay on there.
Well, now there's.
Lessons learned.
Equipment to spread.
Lessons learned, I got to. Anyways,
we need to decide if
So what will
that,
it cost to spread those?
we're still getting a number.
And do we want to? I mean,
Like,
that's
yeah, I don't know.
That's a very different use case,
Yeah.
a gravel path as opposed to wood chips
Well, and
that
it's
folks
millings.
walk and
It's-
run.
It'll wash away, it's gotta be. graded
Into the
once in a
lake.
while. It's not wood chips, you just pour some more down.
Right.
I get it, I get what he's attempting to do, it just doesn't seem like it's practical, and it'll cost us a lot more money than just, it's not like you're gonna take a couple of your guys with a wheelbarrow and just do this, it's gonna cost thousands and thousands of dollars of equipment to spread it. For that reason, I don't know.
There's also some members or people have concerns environmentally. with
Agreed, because
spreading
it's a petroleum product.
bituminous all the way around, but it just, what does the board wish us to do? I guess that's where.
I don't wish to spend any more money on it other than to get it towed away.
So is it gonna cost us more now to, how much more?
Jesus.
I don't know, I gotta figure that out.
Yeah, because they usually mill it right into the trucks as they're milling it, and then it just goes away, but now they put it in a pile.
Not
There's
a
probably some trucking involved in getting that pile put over there
So-
too.
Truth be told, I was told it was been agreed to, so,
Who told you that?
so. That everybody's on board with doing this, so
It's the first I've heard of it.
Yeah.
so. Same thing with the Halo, I was told that it's been approved, so go ahead and order it, I have not ordered it.
We just wanted to get clear where we were headed, so.
Well, what do you have to do with it now?
We can get it trucked out, that's not a problem, it's
Is
just,
that less expensive than building it into the trail now?
well,
Yeah.
for many reasons, you don't wanna get it into the trail now, so.
My consensus is get rid of it,
I
no.
agree.
You need a consensus down there. You keep including. So the thought process isn't totally wrong by using that to create a more permanent base, pathways. I've seen them used in parks and different places. So, but I mean, it's, relative, it's another expense that has to be discussed and how much it would cost to put it down, more of a permanent structure than wood chips. Probably then, that stuff's pretty good. Why didn't we use it we can't use it underneath it you can't grind it up and use it for base?
It's
No,
usually
you
used
can't
that,
use that for base for.
Yeah.
No, it's-
It's gone
it's like sand practically.
when they're done. I like the wood chip. I'm good with the idea, the theme of how it looks and a little more.
I think that was some of the concern.
An asphalt trail would be cool,
Gotcha.
because that would stay there, but I mean, that's a lot of money. But, that's like what they do on parks, it's all asphalt, it's made permanent, it's 3 inches thick, it's gonna last. These are just gonna spread a wet part, and if you're trying to plow it or something, you can't. So, again,
Understand, there's just a lot of competing interests as to what made sense.
I think I think it's almost like.
It would be nice if the construction team and the design team were apprised of the fact that the board as a whole was discussing the competing interests before it was represented that it had been agreed to. That's where I stand on it.
Yeah.
It was a late decision that they milled it on a Saturday is what they did, so. Last Saturday before last.
I think moving forward, no individuals from the board should be able to make a decision, split section like that. This one clearly does not.
Agreed.
And we're trying to run through all this stuff here, and
I
thought somebody
I'm not
else had
just-
told me we were okay, but
I'm not,
I don't have any documentation, to be honest with you, so.
it's just,
You gotta let the other guy that he's here answer that. So I think we've got a lot accomplished, and a lot of good things accomplished. If you hang your head on what you did wrong, you wouldn't have done anything at all to start with. So there's a lot of things going the right way. I'm hearing the bus tires running over somebody that's not sitting there defending himself at the moment. So I think that all will stop right now. Let's move on and keep doing good things, which is what we're here to do.
Anything further? All right. Thank you all for being here this evening. Meeting's adjourned.
You're getting me.
It's
fine. I'm just used to it, Recording's still going.
Appreciate
just so you
it if
know.
that courtesy was extended to the rest of us as well.